Good afternoon, and once again, I'm here with another uh, informative video. So, this time we will be relating a manual to a policy. What is a manual? It is a documentation that provides guidance for staff of a specific unit or department to perform their functions correctly and efficiently. So in this manual, you will have your procedures or work instructions. You can also put in technical specifications that are unique to your unit or department. For instance, standards required by radiation or audit standards that are also in regulatory issuances. And guidelines of a specific unit or department can also be contained in a manual. What is a policy? So a policy is a statement of intent which has intended and unintended consequences, and it is either for subjective or objective decision making. So for subjective decision making, for instance, if you want to have good work-life balance, that is something that is not really defined that well. But if your decision making is a policy on delivery of care, then your outcomes would be objective because your outcome would be the cure of the patient. So sometimes you have intended and unintended consequences towards a policy. And of course, in the delivery of care, you sometimes also have the consequence of being exposed yourself to illness. So the policy has also unintended effects or unintended consequences. So what is a policy document? A policy document contains specific rules that are to be followed. It also reflects the values and ethics of the institution, and it has clear objectives and outcomes. So if you notice earlier, the manual is more of a recipe book. It is more procedure driven, more instructional, while in the policy you have a reflection of values and ethics as well as objectives and outcomes. So how does this help you? If you have a manual, you can link it to your policy. So how are these related? In your policy, you will need to have the mandate and objectives of your unit or department. The activities that support objectives are already contained in the manual. But of course, in the policy, you will enumerate those activities in a general form. So for instance, if you're the housekeeping section, then your activities would consist mainly of cleaning activities. No? And for the internal audit service, you will have audit activities. And the policy also contains roles and responsibilities that include those of others outside your unit or department. For example, if your medical records policy exists, then it should also have the responsibilities of doctors, of nurses, and of others that are involved in documentation of health records. Your manual will contain activities that are specified in that are generally enumerated in the policy, as well as details of specific roles in your unit or department. So for instance, if you have specific requirements for a nurse 1, nurse 2, nurse 3, then it can be placed in the manual instead of in the policy. Technical definitions that are applicable only to your unit or department can be placed in a manual, as well as tools and guidelines. So for tools, for instance, if you have an evaluation tool that only your department uses, or if you have a set of guidelines that are specific to your activities, then you can place it in the manual. So the outcome that we are looking for is a concise policy that is relevant and accommodates procedure changes. I've said that because if your manual changes, for instance, if you have a change in procedure, if the standards change, if you have a new tool, a new regulation that needs to be followed, the policy will stay the same because your objectives remain the same as a unit or department or committee for that matter. A manual that specifies activities specific to the unit or department can be kept up to date because it is more modifiable than a policy. No? So, since this is only related to your own operations, then the latitude in which you can modify the manual is wider than that of a policy. So I hope that this short video helps you in distinguishing a manual from a policy and also linking them together so that your policy documents do not exceed 50 pages in length. Thank you, and for any questions, you can approach the Quality Assurance Office or me so that we can help you in the development of your policy documents. Thank you very much.